Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Premiership Quarter. Today, I'm going to be doing my predictions for the West Coast Eagles in the season 2024. I will be doing my prediction for their best 23, including who I have replacing everyone that has been injured in the early parts of the season. I will be talking about who may finish top three in their best and fairest, as well as a couple of other awards, who were their ins and outs from the off season, as well as where they might finish in 2024. That'll probably be pretty obvious to you. Now, to start with, I'm going to be doing their backline. It's where I normally start, and I'll start with their key defenders. I think Tom Barrass is a All-Australian 44-man caliber defender. He's shown that previously. He is a great leader for them down back. He's very vocal. He's a great interceptor, and simply with the amount of inside 50s he gets hit on his head, I think he holds up pretty well with it. He can get goals kicked on him, but when you're allowing such easy inside 50s, such direct kicks to your opposing player, there's really not much you can do about it. I do really think he will be a part of their premiership team, given the fact that if this list stays similar to what it was with the core of it, he will be a part of the spine for their premiership team. In terms of their second key defender, it's going to be Jeremy McGovern. He sat out of their Pracky match against Freo, but I think he should be ready to go from the start of the season. I haven't heard any actual injury reports with it, so it's probably just precautionary. If he does get back to his best or anything close, because he is getting older, it's going to be super important for them. We saw at the back end of last season how important he can be. He just gives them any chance of staying alive with the amount of inside 50s they allow. And he's a super important player for them. We know how good he can be. It's just whether he can stay on the field or not. In terms of their more medium-sized defender, it's Brady Hough. I think with the retirement of Shannon Hearn, he takes his place immediately. I think he can be in this team for a little while. I don't see him being a bad player at all. He'll struggle at times for sure. That's what young players do. But I actually see him as not a too dissimilar player to a Shannon Hearn. And if he's able to keep that longevity like Shannon Hearn did, it's going to be great for the Eagles. In terms of their more rebounding halfbacks, it's going to be Liam Duggan. I think he's one of the most underrated player in the comps. And there's been a couple of rumors about him leaving, but I don't think he will. I think he'll stay. And I really like him as a player. I think he's very damaging and he can play it in the midfield at times if they need it. The other one who played there in the preseason match was Jaden Hunt. I didn't watch it, but from the reports I've read, he played pretty well. He moved from the wing back to half back at a couple of times last season. And from the reports, it might seem like he might be playing that this season if Harley Reid doesn't go back there himself. In terms of their small forward lockdown, it's going to be Tom Cole. I don't think there's anyone else really challenging for him for it. And I just see him staying in the team. And then in terms of their backup defender on the bench, it's going to be Jermaine Jones. I'm a big fan of him. I don't think he gets any credit outside of almost all media. I don't think even West Coast fans talk about him a lot. But I do like him. I think he's like a mini Liam Duggan. And I see him really improving on his season last year. In terms of their wingers, they're probably the most experienced pair of wingers in Dom Sheed and Andrew Gaff. Sheed obviously played a bit more midfield time because he had to, but I think his best position is absolutely still on the wing. It allows him to be more damaging with his kicking, and he doesn't need to put his body under so much stress in the midfield. Andrew Gaff is not too dissimilar, but he will probably play a bit more midfield time this year. He just is able to run all day, and he's super important as a leader to this team. In terms of their forward line, it was going to be Bailey Williams as the big-bodied key forward, but since Matt Flynn has gone down in their captain's run, I've put Bailey Williams in the ruck, and I think Ryan Marich probably starts as their key forward over someone like Jack Williams or Callum Jamison. I really like Oscar Allen as well. I think it was the right decision to put him as the captain, or at least the co-captain. I can't remember if he is or isn't the full-time captain, but I think he's a great key forward. He's a great leader as well, and he probably is going to be their future captain by himself. He can, I think, lead a team to a premiership as a key forward. I think he is that good, and I really do like him as a player. I think Jack Darling isn't as bad as he was last year. He is getting old, but the the depths he got to last year was really, really poor as a leader and as a player you would look up to if you are a tall forward in their team. And so I do think he gets back to it. I don't think he has as little to work with as well. I think their midfield is able to provide a bit more than they did last year, which will absolutely help. And I think he gets back to at least a little bit closer to when he was at his best. In terms of their small and medium forwards, I've got Jamie Cripps. Obviously, he had a few good games last season. Think of the Bulldogs game, where he just showed his experience and how good he is and can still provide to this team. But he's getting older and he's not going to get any better. And so I think he's at that stage where he needs to teach someone like a Noah Long how to be that small forward. And I think he'll still be in the team when he's at his best. They also brought in Tyler Brockman, who I don't mind. It's actually a pretty good pickup. He will provide a bit of spark for them. He'll be an X factor as well in some games where if he gets going, he'll provide for him as well as some of his teammates. He can be quite creative. And then originally I had Liam Ryan in this team, but with his injury, I've put Jake Waterman in. I didn't actually know where to put Waterman originally. I wasn't sure if he was going to be a sub. I didn't know if it was going to be in their team. But with Ryan's injury, he can play more of that medium-sized forward role. And I do like him. I just didn't know where to put him originally. Now, in terms of their midfield, as I mentioned, I think Bailey Williams does start as the ruckman. I don't see Callum Jamieson being the starting ruckman. So I think with the season he had last year, which was pretty good, he does take that role again. They've got a decent midfield, actually. Tim Kelly is a great player. He is around his 30s now, so it's not great for the future, but he still performed really well last season. And I think he had a good case for All Australian team. It's just the fact that the Eagles were so bad. Elliot Yeo is the other one. It's just health with him. He performed all right off of half back last season, but I think this year he played a bit more midfield in the preseason game. So he probably plays a bit more there. And then is the other midfielder, I've got Ruben Jinby. I really like Jinby. I think he's that big-bodied, defensive, stocky midfielder. And I think he can break the lines at times as well, which you need that in your game because you can't be so one-sided as a midfielder. In terms of their bench, I mentioned Jermaine Jones already. I do like him. Harley Reid is going to be that fourth midfielder. There's been rumours he might start off with halfback, similar to what Dacos and Sheasel have done. However, I don't see him as that player. I see him more as a pure midfielder than what someone like Dacos and Sheasel did. So he's a bit more solid than them, and I think he'll be able to be more impactful in the half forward line than what Dacos and Sheasel were able to do. So I see him more as that midfielder. I've got Noah Long and Jack Petrocelli as the other two. I think Petrocelli might be able to play on the wing a little bit this season. He'll probably be that third winger because I don't see anyone else playing that role. Maybe Jaden Hunt, and Petrocelli can use his speed off halfback. But I think he has an okay season. I think his spot is up for grabs for sure if some of the youngsters play up. I also don't have Elijah Hewitt in this team because his injury, we don't know how long he's going to be out, but he's definitely in this team when fully healthy. Probably is over someone like Petrocelli or Long, but I do like Long as a small forward. I think he's certainly in their team for the next few years, and he can provide a real impact when he kicks goals because he does kick some stupid goals, thinking back to that St Kilda game where they almost won. In terms of who I have finishing in their best and fairest, I think the top three is really obvious. I don't see anyone really challenging them. It's going to be Alan first. Again, he's just, with what he performed last season, he's only going to get better this season. And he basically won it last season because Tim Kelly was only slightly ahead. So it was basically a share. And I just have him winning it. Second, I've got Liam Duggan. I really like Duggan. As I've mentioned, I think he does get slightly ahead of Kelly because Kelly might slow down a little bit and also others will have to share the load with him, whereas I think Duggan's that clear half-back role similar to like Jack Sinclair or a Nick Blakey type. Third, I've got Tim Kelly. I think he is their number one midfielder by far. You could make an argument for someone like a Dom Sheed if he stays healthy, but I just think Tim Kelly, with the season he had last year, he'll still get the honours with the best and fairest to finish top three. terms of who got the most goals, I think the top is the obvious one. It's going to be Oscar Allen. No one's going to be challenging him. It could be a 20-goal difference between him and second place. I think that's entirely plausible. Second, I had real trouble with. I don't know if Jack Darling will. I'd assume he would get better, but the fact that he was so poor last season put some doubt in my mind. I think also third for me is Jamie Cripps, and it's a bit concerning when your second and third goal kickers would be so old, and I don't see anyone younger really making a big enough impact. Ryan Marich is first and a half year player really because he was a mid-season pick, and for him to be finishing top three in your goal scoring as a essentially first year player would be really disappointing for them. Don't see Brockman being as consistent or Noah Long. I think they're quite similar to the point where they won't actually consistently kick goals. And then Jake Waterman's not really the pure goal kicking type. So I think they'll struggle at times to be able to find anyone outside of Oscar Allen, and they'll only have certain games where they can get over 80 points. I think they'll play really low scoring games. In terms of who I have winning their most improved, I'm going to go Liam Duggan. I don't think a lot of media people in Victoria or outside of West Coast simply talk about him. He is a great halfback flanker. I really like him, and he deservedly got the co-captain with Oscar Allen. Second, I've got Ruben Jinby. I think he is probably their best young midfielder outside of Harley Reid, but we also don't know how good Harley Reid will be. Jinby, if he stays healthy, will have a great season, and I think he's a centerpiece to build around as well. Third, I've got Jermaine Jones because I think he locks down that defensive role. He doesn't get talked about at all, and I just think he'll be good enough by the end of the season to be in the team. In terms of their ins and outs from the off-season, they only really lost a couple of players to retirement. They lost Nick Naitanui and Shannon Hearn, as well as Luke Shuey, and they were quite important to them at their best. But last season, Nick Nat didn't play many games. Luke Shuey was constantly injured, and Shannon Hearn was nowhere near his best. So in terms of actual impact to their team, I don't think it's a lot. And then who they brought in, I think they drafted Harley Reid, I think is a good player. Clay Hall got injured, but I think he'll be an important piece for them when he gets to develop into a good player. Same thing with Harvey Johnston. I really like him as a player. I think he's going to be in the team by the end of 2026, but it's hard to tell with him now. And then they brought in Tyler Brockman and Matt Flynn as their two more experienced players that are still young. Matt Flynn obviously got injured, which is not great, but he probably starts as their ruckman. That's why they brought him in. And then Tyler Brockman will be a good small forward impact player. In terms of where I have them finishing, I think they will finish 18th. I just think they're so difficult to predict in terms of their injuries that you can't really go elsewhere with it. They've got the talent to be able to win a few games, but that doesn't take them away from the bottom. Their best will probably be 16th as well. If you were to try to do a range, I think it's 16th to 18th. If North has a horrible season, if LDU can't stay healthy, and Larky, God forsake, gets injured, then North can slip below them, and also have Fremantle potentially, or Richmond if a couple of their players get injured, potentially going below them if everyone stays healthy for West Coast. But I just don't see that happening. So that's my thoughts on West Coast. If you have any others, leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this type of content, please subscribe to my channel. It will really help me grow. And thanks for watching.